Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. Welcome to Soulibration. I am your host, Shamika Rhymes, and I am super excited about tonight's show. But first, let me know where you're watching from and how you're doing this evening. Let me know how your week is going, how your mom and them are doing. I want to know all the details. And you guys are my co-hosts. So remember to share this with your network. And if you have any questions at all during the show, make sure you drop it in the chat. And as you know, I'll get to them. And let me know your thoughts. We're still testing out this background. Let me know if you like it. I'm loving it. And from last week, it seems like you guys are loving it too, but I always want to hear your feedback. So tonight we're talking about how self-care is not selfish. It's essential. With all that's going on in the world today, with the news every single day, with a lot of stuff going on, even as you're scrolling on social media, there's a lot going on. Your nervous system is on edge all the time. But how are you prioritizing yourself? Like, what are you doing to take care of you? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. So whether you're practicing self-love this Valentine's Day, because that's coming up, whether you're single or not, navigating self-care in today's political climate, or are you setting some self-care resolutions for this year? What did you put on that vision board we talked about a few weeks ago? Well, tonight we're going to talk about making yourself a priority. You can't expect other people to make you a priority. That's a lesson I had to learn, but you got to make yourself a priority and protect your peace. So make sure you stay locked in as we explore what self-care really and truly looks like. And we're going to talk about how to make it a consistent practice and why it's more important now than ever. And so we're also going to talk about the power of self-love, the best self-care routines, and just overall protecting your peace. And I see New Orleans checking in the chat. Hey, New Orleans, Gastonia, Asheville. Hey, y'all. Let me tell you about tonight's guest. We have Cassandra Juniphant. She is the founder of Ori Ara, a self-care company, and the creator of the Body Ministry and Self-Care Alchemist through her blog, book, courses, and community. She's dedicated to reviving traditional wellness practices for modern women, helping them reestablish a deeper, more meaningful relationship with their bodies. Wait till you guys see how fit she is. Like, I want her arms. Let's bring on Cassandra.
Hey, how are you?
Well, we can't see your arms, but that picture. How are you?
I'm doing so good. Just for the record, I love the backdrop.
Okay.
I think it looks fabulous. So, you got to vote for me.
Okay. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that you are here. We connected through scrolling on social media.
Yep. Through threads, I think.
Yes. Talking about self-care. So for those that seem to have some trouble trying to figure out what self-care really means, what does it mean? And how does that go beyond just pampering yourself, going to get your hair and nails done?
Yeah, that's a great question and a perfect place to start because, I'll start with self-care isn't just for Sundays. We were doing that hashtag for a long time, right? Like hashtag self-care Sunday. And it was cute. I mean, don't get me wrong. I definitely practice it, but self-care is actually a daily practice. It's not something that we regulate or, set aside for just once a week. It's a daily practice. And when we practice it daily, we find that we have the inspiration and the motivation and the energy to do all of the things. But one simple way to kind of capture what self-care is, it's an investment in yourself that adds up over time, that has a major return on investment. And that's important to kind of like wrap your mind around, because when we think about the manis and the petties, when we think about the mimosa brunches, when we think about the shopping sprees and the bubble baths kind of toe the line. But when we think about those things do not add up over time to make us a better self. And that's why after all of these years running around talking about hashtag self-care Sunday, we're still tired. We're still, unfulfilled and feeling overwhelmed because that really wasn't like moving the needle on truly caring for ourselves. So when you think about establishing a self-care practice or just wanting to dabble in self-care and start that journey for yourself, think about the activities that you can do that will add up over time to make you a better you.
Oh, I like that. I forgot to ask everybody in the chat, drop in there what you do for self-care. How do you prioritize yourself? I'm just curious what kinds of things people in the chat will say, because I'm sitting here thinking like, I started doing this whole Sabbath Sunday, I'm going to rest, I'm going to do this. And then I find myself turning the laptop on. I'm just going to be on here for a minute. That is not
That's a
self-care.
slippery slope. It's a slippery slope.
So, do you think self-care also is the same thing as protecting your peace? Because I know, like, right now, it seems like so much is going on, and you have to, like, for me, I know I can't be on social media 24/7 or even for an hour like I was before, because there's just constant news every single day that I have to maybe pop in, check my mentions, do a post, and then get out of there.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's definitely including protecting your peace, because when our peace is disturbed, it feels like an emotion, right? Like it's something we can identify. We can use a word to identify it. It feels like stress. It feels like frustration. It feels like fear. It feels like anger. It feels like all of those things. And we use words to describe those things, but those very same things have a real material, physiological effect on our body. Like, we forget that our body is keeping the score. I don't know if anyone's ever read that book before, but it's a magical read, and it really drives home the effect that these emotions and our experiences have on our physical body and our physical health. And so absolutely, protecting your peace is definitely, I would say, at the foundation, part of the foundation of self-care. I actually have a hierarchy of self-care, and it's kind of like, have you heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
That sounds familiar. I don't know where I heard it from. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's something we learned a gazillion years ago in elementary school, maybe middle school, talking about how people feel motivated by different apps. It's a psychological tool that measures different motivations for people. Well, I developed a hierarchy of self-care, and it's a similar model where it's like a triangle shape, and at the bottom, at the foundation of that pyramid, are the basics of self-care, which I define as rest, water, good food, movement, and knowledge of self. And protecting your peace, I think, definitely falls into that knowledge of self category, and paying attention to when our peace is being disturbed, and paying and saying no, and kind of setting some standards for how we want to feel and carry ourselves throughout the day. So 100%, protecting your peace is really, really important.
Okay. I'm cracking up because you're like, we learned this in elementary school. I was like, maybe I wasn't there that day.
You didn't miss much.
So how can someone figure out what self-care looks like for them personally? Because, I've seen people online, and I was one of them, like, what are hobbies? What do y'all do for hobbies? Like, what do all these questions. And I see those same questions pop up all the time on social media. So how does someone figure out what self-care looks like for them?
Yeah, so there's so many ways, because there are so many things. And going back to that hierarchy would definitely help kind of ground us in, what self-care looks like. And I don't know if this is a spiritual leaning crowd here, but I mean, self-care really does come back to being a very spiritual driven activity and practice that we have. Self-care is a spiritual practice. And so, to get started, I think it will help to be able to reflect on yourself as being a spiritual being, as being someone who is a soul first, who just so happens to have a body. We're not bodies that just so happen to have souls. And when you think about that, when you realize I'm a soul, I'm this eternal spirit that chose to have this body. Why do I have this body? What does it do? What is it meant for? How do I optimize it? Like, what kind of potential does it hold? And when you start asking yourself those questions, answers will appear. Like, literally, the neural pathways in our brain will start to open up and go in search of answers. If you ask yourself a few questions about what is caring for myself as a spirit who has this body, what does that look like for me? What did God want me to do with this thing? And really being open to the answers that arrive. But it's taking a moment to sit with that and reflect on the fact that our body is sacred. Our body is divine. When God talks about it being our temple, that's not just some cutesy esoteric kind of idea. It really is. And in sitting with that, it's like, okay, well then what is the meaning behind my hair? Like, why is that spiritual? What is the meaning behind, my arms and my legs, my teeth, my skin, all of the parts of our body, and just getting curious. And I think that curiosity will take us to the answers to what is, self-care look for you, because we have things about our body that we're fascinated in. We have things about our body that we're proud of. We have things about our body that we just, we're more inclined to. And so, for example, if you're someone who's like feels really strongly about dental hygiene, start getting curious about, why do we have teeth, and what is the spiritual and magical, purpose behind having teeth? And you'll come to find that our teeth are these, storehouses for unresolved emotion in our body. And if you're someone who's particular about your teeth, maybe there's some unresolved emotion there that you can spend some time working through. And so a self-care practice for you would be, while you're brushing your teeth, as opposed to, we're supposed to spend 2 minutes brushing our teeth.
Right.
So as opposed to doing that, just with no thought and no intention, spend that very same 2 minutes in brushing your teeth with intention of releasing whatever emotion's been stored up and stockpiled away and not being able to be free and let go, And so self-care doesn't come down to it being, well, everyone needs to do this one thing, or we all need to do that one other thing. It really comes down to, what do you feel called to do? Whatever that calling is, whatever that pull that you feel like, oh, I'm interested in this, or I'm curious about that. That is, that's your intuition. That is your divinity. That is that is God, the universe, spirit, whatever you believe in. It's that pull. It's that call saying there's something here for you. This is where we want to focus our self-care practices on. So to circle back around and answer your question, I really think it starts with just getting curious, get curious about why you have a body. What about it is interesting to you? What about it, or maybe not even interesting, but what about it aches? What about it is painful? And go down that path. But ask yourself questions and get curious about what it could mean. And again, I promise you'll get answers.
That's awesome. Because I'm thinking, when you were saying that, because now that I've heard this term twice, the habit stacking, it's like, when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm doing affirmations now, because I'm looking in the mirror, and it's like, okay, let me talk to myself for a minute, do these affirmations as I'm brushing my teeth and flossing, and, the whole dental routine. And even if it is, I only have that few minutes for that self-care, that's just, it may be, this is what I needed to work on, because like you said, asking yourself, what is it that I need?
What is it that I need? Yeah. And the habit stacking is a perfect example of exactly that. And we tend to think self-care are these big activities that we have to make time for, when they really are these little micro habits that we are stacking on top of our everyday life, and that's another question that I get a lot is, how do I find time? How do I make this happen for myself? And you just said it. It's about kind of layering these behaviors on top of each other. It's taking the regular everyday activities that we do to care for ourselves and apply intention to them. And then it becomes a self-care practice that is quite literally magical.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I see a great idea in the chat, and thank you, Tamika Smith. I see love the background. Thank you. You guys, don't forget, let me know what you do for self-care. So we've talked a little bit about some, but what are some other small everyday self-care practices that can make a huge impact? Like I have one friend, she makes sure to, before her work day, she goes for a walk. And then maybe at lunch, she goes for a walk. And I used to, just like I used to, but the weather just be active too. I cannot do it when it's cold. So just even if it's just a 10-minute, or if I was on a conference call, let me go out, let me put it on my phone and go outside and walk, do it at the same time. Cause I'm getting that a little bit of exercise in while I'm the habit stacking.
Yeah, 100%. People underestimate the power of walking. Walking is a beautiful exercise. I walk every morning for 30 minutes. I do a sunrise walk because it's how I start my day. It's kind of like a walking meditation, so that I'm in nature. I'm getting that early morning sunrise, which is really important to our ability to fall asleep at night. I'm praying, I'm talking to the stars, to the moon, to God. Like it's a whole moment. It's 30 minutes to myself, and really creating that baseline of stillness and intention for me to decide what I want my day to look like. How do I want to show up to my day? How do I want to show up to myself? And just having that that time to myself in the morning is so important, so that as I go throughout my day and I feel myself veering off path from how I decided I wanted to spend my day, it's easier to navigate back towards me. Sometimes we wake up and just start going, and then our day just ends up going like this. And we look up before we know it, it's midnight. We haven't eaten, forgot to call whoever back, whatever the case may be. And it's because we've never taken that moment at the beginning of our day to decide this is what today is going to look like. And you then have that benchmark to be, using as a guide to get back to as your day proceeds. But taking a walk, morning prayer, morning meditation for that stillness that I just spoke about is so important. But other things that I like to point out that don't take any more time are things like going to sleep, getting 8 hours of rest, right? Like how many of us truly, if we're being honest, how many of us are truly getting 8 hours of sleep? And when we do go to sleep, we go to sleep grudgingly, like, damn it, I guess I better go to bed at this point. It's kind of this thing, and we still have all this worry on our mind. We still have all of these things that we're thinking about, and we don't even get a good night's rest. And so one of the best self-care practices you can do is go to bed in peace. Whether you want to journal before you go to bed and like just do a brain dump and get everything out so you're not worrying, or do a to-do list so that you're prepared to wake up the next morning, or you pray or you meditate and give it all to God, give it all to the universe, but get that out your head and go to bed in peace and get 8 hours of sleep. That would be a beautiful, self-care practice that, again, we're sleeping anyways, but we can do so with intention. Same thing with food, eating, we eat anyways, but we can try and focus on high vibrational meals. Like when's the last time we actually had our, 4 to 5 servings of greens or vegetables every day? Like how consistently are we doing that? That's a self-care practice that pays so many dividends in the long run, from, the micronutrients for our hair, skin, and nails to, gut health, to slimming down our body. I mean, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. So eat some vegetables. That's another good self-care practice. Drinking our water, staying hydrated, another great self-care practice. Absolutely. And the pro tip to drinking water is to bless your water. Water carries energy. Water is, it's not quite sentient, but it does hold memory. It does have memory, rather. And so when we speak kindly, when we say nice things to our water literally absorbs that energy. And then when we drink the water, guess what we're drinking? We're drinking that same positive energy. And so the pro tip to just drinking water because I'm supposed to drink water is to actually bless it. And then you consume those blessings, and it quite literally becomes like the fabric of our body, over time. But those are just a few self-care practices that we do anyways. They don't take any more from you or any more time from you to do. It's really just adding that layer of intention to them that really make it a self-care practice.
Okay. Let's see. Tamika Smith has a question. She said, so when we veer off of, how do we get back on track, even if you've already set the tone for the day, because anything could happen, and everything your whole schedule may get tossed out, and you're just like, well, I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't expect this, but how do I get back into my peace?
Yeah. A couple of things. One, a lot of grace. We got to start with grace. Just like we're human still, we're divine. I believe you're a goddess. I'm a goddess. Tamika's a goddess, but we're still human. And so we have to be, patient and extend a lot of grace to ourselves. So that's number one. But then number two, I always like to consider, it goes back to asking questions. Why did this happen? What's in this for me? I had this plan for this piece, or I had this plan for this thing, but if I had a detour, why? There's something there for me. There is nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us, but it's being open and willing to explore. So again, it's asking those questions. What's in this for me? Was this a divine detour? Is there something that I intended to do that I'm not doing now that causes me frustration because I'm off of what I intended to do, but it's a better path for me for reasons that I might not appreciate or be aware of right now. But we've got sayings. There's a silver lining in every cloud, things like that. And if you choose to believe that's true and ask yourself, what's in this for you? I'm willing to bet you'll get an answer. And then the third thing is that if our goal or part of our intention is to show up to ourselves and show up to our day, with this, whatever that intention was, there's a mood, there's an attitude, there's a vibe that we're trying to have that day, and something happens to throw us off, it's really an invitation to actually show up as that thing you say you are, because we're not who we are when everything is perfect. It's real easy to be, in the flow, and to be, spiritual, and to be a goddess, or to be a boss, or to be in love, and all of these things when everything's going well. And so if something happens that feels like it's trying to steal that from you, are you those things? Are you those things? Can you show up to this opportunity? Like, this is an invitation. It's an opportunity. It's a gift if we choose to look at it that way, to be like, I really am about this life, whatever that thing is. And I'm going to show up to this, even though I see whatever you want to call it, the devil, shadow, whatever is trying to throw me off. That's not who I am. You can't pull something out of somebody that doesn't exist, right? So if the anger, the frustration, the hatred, the stress, if it's not in you, it's not going to come out. So it really is an invitation for us to explore, who are we really? Who are we really? And how do we want to show up to whatever this thing is? So Tamika, I hope that helps.
Oh, yeah. She's got some hand claps and some 100 exclamation points. So yes, that helps.
I love it. Good.
And guys, if you have any questions, drop it in the chat. Please do.
Yeah, please do.
So how often should we be practicing self-care? Is this something we should be doing daily, or should we, if people are just starting out, what's a good goal? Like maybe once a week, twice a week, 3 times?
Every day. Every day. I'm not gonna let you slide. Every day.
Every day.
It's got to be every day. Because so let's think about this. Self-care is you loving on yourself. Why would you love on yourself less? What's more important? What are we prioritizing over daily self-care? I'd love to know. Because I can't think of anything better than to prioritize myself, because how I treat myself is how the world is going to treat me, right? We can only attract and receive love or anything else to the degree that we love and treat ourselves that way. So I'm going to prioritize me all day. And like you started off the show saying, that's not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. It's the only way to make sure that we can show up for all of the things that we love in our life, whether that's our family, our significant other, our job, our work, our friends, our pets, whatever it is that is the thing that you love. The only way you can show up to that in true love is by first loving yourself. If you are sacrificing yourself in order to take care of those other things first, you're not really, not meaning to offend anybody here, but you're not really loving on them. You're asking for their approval is what you're doing. You can't love somebody unless you love yourself. Otherwise, you're outsourcing your love, right? By making sure, well, I'm not going to love on me. I'm not going to practice my daily self-care because they need this and they need that, and I don't feel like all of the things. You've just outsourced your love. So I'm going to come back to my original response of, you've got to practice it daily. You've got to practice, and you deserve to practice it daily. I just can't imagine what is more important than loving on yourself.
Ooh, you were talking to me. You were just real loud right now. Because that honestly, and everybody knows I'm very transparent. That is one of the things that I have learned over the past few months, is that I was outsourcing so much and not taking care of me. I thought, okay, I'm gonna go to this yoga class once, maybe twice a week. That's it. And then I'm gonna rest for an hour on Sunday, and that's self-care. And then my body sat me down like, no, ma'am. That's not how this works.
Exactly.
So I have learned, like, once you, the whole, like, what is it? I've seen it on YouTube. The self-neglect and the self-abandonment is real.
And it helps if we can think about our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with our body the same way we would think about it as a romantic partner. Like, imagine if your partner neglected you like that or abused you like that. You'd be like, no, sir, no, that's this. this is not love. This is not what love feels like. How am I supposed to feel good about this? You wouldn't. And I actually have, I've got a self-love digital care package. I've got actually one for Black History Month and one for, just in general. And in this care package, this download, it walks you through the steps of treating yourself treating your body like a romantic partner. What are the standards that you have for that, for a relationship? Because these are absolutely the same standards that you should be applying to yourself. What is the language? What is the frequency of communication? Yeah. What is the love language? What is, how would you feel if your partner starved you all day, but demanded that you get things done and, didn't say anything nice to you all day, and then told you that you couldn't go to sleep even though you were tired, and didn't give you water even though you were thirsty? I mean, think about what kind of relationship that would feel like being on the receiving end. Mm-hmm. Well, your body, for many of us, is. Right. So if we can start to think of our body in that, because it's the closest relationship you're going to have with anybody else in your life, is the one that you have with yourself and the one that you have with your body. So if we can apply those standards to how other people treat us, we can absolutely be the first one to step up to the plate and apply those standards to ourselves.
Woo! Look, my little clap, because you just preached the whole word right there. I mean, because it has made me think, like, there have been days where I'm like, "Ooh, I forgot to drink more than a glass of water," and then those things. But you're right. How would I feel if somebody was like, "You can't have any water. Like, you can't have this. You can't go to sleep. You got to stay up." And all those things. And it's almost like you said, other people are treating us as we treat ourselves. And I think, what was the term? And I don't remember if it was a therapist on here that said the mirroring, where basically you're watching someone do the same things to you that you're doing to yourself, and you just don't realize it.
You don't realize it, exactly. But again, our body's keeping the score. Our body's keeping the score. So we can't really run from it. We can temporarily, put a Band-Aid on it and get it to quiet down a little bit, but it's going to let us know.
Oh yeah, it will. And an ache, pain.
Yeah, exactly. Especially over 40, like it's a whole different level of relationship.
It is. And I wanted to go back to something you said earlier. It was just a thought when you were talking about going to sleep, giving it all to God, or just, meditating, praying, whatever you got to do so you can go lay down, go to sleep. Yeah. One of the things, because being over 40, and I'm not admitting my age, y'all, but being over a certain age, and perimenopausal, you don't sleep all night and you wake up. So what I started to do is, if I was waking up with anxiety or whatever it was, or if my brain was like 1,000 ideas, I would write it down on a piece of paper, just get it out of my head, and then I would go right back to sleep.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm a big believer in journaling before bed. I have to get it out. I have to get them out. And another little thing that I just learned about that I'll share is magnesium. Take a magnesium tea before bed. I take a magnesium tea with ginger root and turmeric root, and I sleep. I finally sleep like a baby, because the perimenopause, like lacking sleep, hot flashes, all of the things was so real. And then I discovered magnesium, and my life feels so amazing.
Oh, yes. I'm going to have to talk to you more about that. Yeah. So what are some signs that someone is neglecting their self-care? Like, what are some other signs besides, and that they may not even realize they're doing it? So we talked a little bit about the water, the food, maybe not physical movement. Maybe they're just sitting at their desk all day, or, maybe they're, I don't know, sitting with getting the tech neck with the and just scrolling all day, whatever it is they're doing. What are some other signs, like blatant signs, that may show, hey, you're not taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it runs the gamut. I mean, it's kind of a part of our American culture these days. I mean, we struggle with a lot of chronic illness. We struggle with, and that's on the big scale. Even on the smaller scale, we have women that are suffering from hair loss, right? Migraines, PCOS is off the charts. What else? but I think, there's everyone has their thing. Everyone has their thing, or the way the body keeps the score and then it ends up manifesting shows up in so many different ways. Sometimes it has to do with your genetics, sometimes it's environmental. But I would say for anyone, as opposed to looking for any one thing, because if I don't say the thing that you do, you're like, oh, I'm good. And I don't want
right.
trying to scapegoat by that. So when somebody asks you, how are you? How hard is it for you to answer that question? That's a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
If someone asks me, and I'm not, anything special or like, the queen of self-care or anything like that, but I'm so ready to tell everyone how happy I am, how good I feel. It's like that. It comes out, it's effortless. But if someone asks you, how are you? And they're genuinely interested, not the networking. They're asking you, how are you, as they're moving on to the next person kind of thing. Someone's looking you dead in your eyes and they're curious. They love you. How are you? And if it's hard for you to answer that question, you're probably not practicing enough self-care.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I see Lawrenceville, Georgia checking in too. And she said, Patsy Graham Walton, she says, I love me some me.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
You guys make sure you get your questions in. So with Valentine's Day coming up, a lot of people, me, get in their feelings about, everybody's coupled up. What are some ways, even if you are a part of a couple or if you're single, whatever it is, what are some ways you can love on yourself, especially on Valentine's Day, so you don't feel left out? Because even if you're a part of a couple and maybe y'all are long distance, whatever the case is, how can we love on ourselves on a day that's set aside for love?
Yeah. Well, I would say we'll talk about some suggestions, but everything that we're about to talk about are things that can be practiced daily, right? Like this self-love that we're gonna give ourselves on Valentine's Day is the self-love that we should be giving ourselves every day. Just want to put that out there. But one of the things that's also in my digital download, the self-love care package, is writing yourself a love letter. Writing yourself a love letter in deep appreciation of all the things that you have seen yourself through. Your body has had your back 100% of your days. And we want to say thank you. We want to say I love you. We want to say all the kind words that we don't have a chance to say, or we don't end up saying on a daily basis. We want to give our body affirmations, right? Like whatever it is. Some people might feel some type of way about this, but I think standing naked in front of the mirror is one of the most powerful things you can do, especially as a woman. And look at yourself. Like, look at yourself. I remember hearing this statistic that, oh gosh, what was it? It was a large percentage of women don't have full-length mirrors in their home because they don't like looking at themselves full body. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is heartbreaking to hear. So maybe if you're one of those women who do not have a full-length mirror, Valentine's Day, go buy yourself a full-length mirror and look at yourself and begin to fall in love with yourself. Like, face who you are and accept her. Like, accept who she is, accept who you are. So that was two things. It was the love letter, the affirmations. Take yourself out for a date or a good meal. Like, I think creating the energy and creating the experiences that we want to have with a partner, creating those things first with ourselves, draws in like-minded people. In some cases, it'll be a partner. In some cases, it'll be just friends. But you doing the things that set your soul on fire, you doing the things that show love, are going to attract more experiences exactly like that. So, taking yourself out for whatever it is, the thing that you have been wanting to do but waiting to do with somebody else, go ahead and do that thing by yourself. Whether it's like a super romantic, date to dinner in the museum, or a walk on the park or on the beach, or whatever your thing is, whatever that romantic thing is, do that for yourself first and give that love to yourself. What else would I say? Did I say eat a good meal? Yeah, eat a good meal, a high vibrational meal, hopefully. Get pretty, like I think, I know that when I was in my single days, I didn't really believe in beautification that much. Like, I just wasn't doing it for all, sorts of reasons, but just get pretty, not because you want or need anyone to compliment you, but just because you want to see yourself that way. See, like, go ahead and get all dolled up and look at yourself again and be an appreciation of you. So yeah, those are a few ideas that you can do on Valentine's Day. But again, I think these are things that are accessible to us most days, you know.
Absolutely.
The affirmations especially.
Yeah. And I did want to add, buy yourself flowers. Don't be waiting on somebody else to buy them. But I always buy myself flowers. And I see Tamika says she's been doing a lot of the things you just mentioned. She's been doing a lot of those things more lately. So I love that. And she says you're amazing.
Thank you, Tamika. You're amazing.
So what about couples? How can they incorporate self-care into the relationship?
Ooh, you know, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. Well, I'll think about, you know, my husband. I'm a newlywed. I got married last November, 11/11. So we've just made it a little over a year. Still very much in that super lovey-dovey honeymoon phase. And some of the things that we like to do together. Well, we trade off cooking, but like one because cooking is healthy, but also because he's a great cook. But yeah, making those what I call, again, high vibrational meals at home. I think that's a great activity for couples to do together. Taking walks together. Not every couple's a gym couple, and that's okay. Although I think going to gym is really fun with your partner and it could be a good experience, but not everyone's here for that. So taking walks with your partner, and again, understanding that walking is a very valid form of movement and a valid form of exercise. Going to bed together, like actually like making it a point to go to bed together, because sometimes one partner's on the computer, one partner's on the phone, one partner's on the watching TV. Like there's all these things that are distractions. But I think actually making sleep a priority together. So one of the things I do is I make that magnesium tea that I was talking about. I make that for us together. Like that is our, you know, kind of our nightcap. And so things like that. What else? Saying words of affirmation. My husband and I have affirmations that we repeat to each other, not on a daily basis, probably like we should, but we have affirmations. And I think being able to affirm your partner is a beautiful thing. And so having affirmations with your partner. So yeah, that's a good question though. I want to give that some more thought because I hadn't thought about the self-care practices for partners, but that's going to be a thing. So thank you, Shamik.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, let me know when you do something with that, because I would love to. Well, when I get to be part of a couple, I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
So, how can people avoid burnout, especially as they're watching the news and doing all the things? I know self-care is one way to do that, but what would be the best way to kind of set that boundary for themselves? Like, I can't sit here and watch the news 24/7. I can't sit here in front of the TV. I can't sit here and scroll. What do they call it? Doom scroll.
Doom scrolling. Yeah.
I can't argue with people that don't have the same beliefs on Facebook or wherever.
Yeah.
So how should people, like, what should they do to avoid that burnout and set a boundary with themselves? Well, you know, we'll talk a little bit about boundaries with others, but you got to set boundaries with yourself sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of boundaries with myself or with other. My mentor, my spiritual leader taught me to have standards for myself and standards for others, just because just by the sheer definition of a boundary, it's impossible to get close when there's a boundary. And whether you want to get close to somebody else in a relationship, a boundary is not going to do that. If you want to get close to yourself and your self-care, a boundary is not going to do that. So I really like the idea of having standards that we are willing to rise to the occasion of. And so when it comes to the crap that's going on in the world right now, it's having standards for that feeling in your body. Like, what are you willing to tolerate? Are you willing to like does the standard allow for you to experience that fear, that frustration, that stress? You know, just figure out what those standards are. But another thing that I think helps with establishing those standards is falling in love with something. We let entertainment, and I'll consider our news entertainment, but that kind of sneaks in because we don't have anything else really calling our attention. Like the news these days, entertainment these days is literally as what is that word? It's as sensational as possible to
Yeah.
capture our attention. And anything you pay attention to, you've just purchased by spending time on it. And so it's like, do we want to continue to purchase the fear? Do you want to continue to purchase the stress? Do you want to continue to purchase those things? Or can we figure out what hobbies or interests, or, let your heart get excited about doing something. It's often that we aren't excited about going on to go do whatever the thing is, whether that's work out, make a phone call, make a meal, read a book, write a book, meditate. Any host of things, knit. So like whatever your thing is, we don't have those passions anymore. We don't have those creative outlets anymore. But when you do allow yourself to get like excited and inspired about creating or doing or connecting, you're not going to have the tolerance for the emotions that come up when we're watching news or we're watching entertainment that doesn't sit well with our soul. Like there's just no room for it. I can't tell you the last time I really sat down and watched the news. I pick up things here and there. I try to stay informed to the degree that it makes me feel comfortable. But I've got so much passion in my life that I can't wait to get to do. So it's like, why would I watch that? Why would I have a book over here that I cannot wait to turn the page on. I have this blog that I can't wait to write because Shamika just told me about self-care for couples. I'm about to go write that blog post, right? Like get excited about the things that are available to us. And I promise you, you're not going to worry about all the crap and the other things that are literally trying to steal our attention and steal our peace.
Oh, yeah. Because I, when you were saying that, I'm like, I get excited about putting the show together every week. Very excited. So that's one thing that keeps me busy for sure.
Yeah.
And so speaking about, I love that you said standards versus boundaries. So setting standards with other people, say we talked about how sometimes if you're not loving on yourself, sometimes you let people trample all over your standards and everything else. So what is some advice for those situations?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in sovereignty. I can never make, and I don't want to make anyone do anything. I'm not here to make you obey my standards. What happens is you notice my standards. My standards speak for themselves. They can't be trampled on because they're a standard. So if my standard is to speak to myself kindly because I love me and I want to speak life and positivity into me, and I come in contact with somebody else who doesn't uphold that standard. It's not about telling them that this is my standard. It's not about trying to get them to respond in that fashion. It's simply not participating in that conversation because it's a standard. It's a standard. It's not and I think that's part of the beauty about it. It's something that we get to do. It's something that we get to embody, and people have the opportunity and the invitation to match that energy, right? But when they don't, it's, well, you're not my person in any way, shape, or form that person arrived to you, whether it's a coworker, a boss, a potential partner, some lady at the grocery store. It's just that you're not meeting my standard. You're not on my radar. You don't exist. Like this is not happening right now. And that's part of protecting your peace, right? I think when we try to fight for standards or fight for boundaries, we end up disturbing our peace. We get all hot and bothered and want to make a point in the name of upholding something for ourselves, but it really does more damage to us in the long run. That person clearly didn't care to begin with. So I think the best response is by protecting our peace. Upholding that standard for us and, going about our business and whatever that looks like in that moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, it does. It does. I feel like we could talk forever. This has been such a great conversation. So is there anything you want to leave the viewers with when it comes to self-care as we wrap up?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things that I like to make sure I share is a quote that I came up with. I don't remember even how, but it's when you have a calling on your life, you must protect it with your health. And we all have a calling, whether that's as a wife, a mother, a daughter, a best friend, a pet mom, a radio show host, an entrepreneur, a boss. We all have a calling on our life, and we have to protect that calling with our health. Nobody is asking us to be a martyr. No one is asking us to die. No one else is asking us to get sick or make ourselves unwell in the name of love, in the name of these other things. And, you hear women or just people running around talking about, oh, I die for my kids. I die for my job. I die for this business. I die for my parents or my partner. But nobody is asking you to do that. Well, you live healthy for them. I think that's a better mission. I think that's a better goal. And so, for whoever's listening, you've got a calling on your life. So protect it with your health.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. So I always ask this question, last question.
Okay.
What feeds your soul?
Ooh, that's a good question. What feeds my soul?
Mm-hmm.
Yoga.
Mine too.
Yoga, for sure. Yoga absolutely feeds my soul. Like that's my primary form of self-care. It's everything. Like, I want to sometimes be like, no, it's not everything, but no, it really is everything. It really is everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Now I'm nosy. Now I want to know what type of yoga do you practice?
Yeah. So I started off practicing hot yoga. That was my introduction to yoga, which is wild. People are like, that's where you started, but it was, and I loved it. But then over COVID, my studio shut down, the one that I used to go to. And so then I started practicing yin yoga. And I fell in love with yin yoga because I love vinyasa too. I love a good flow, but yin yoga really is more about holding the poses. And I have a background in bodybuilding. I was a bodybuilder for 5 years. I went pro in 2016, and I really love like flexing and strength, and yin yoga is the perfect combination of exercising that strength and really like the mind muscle connection is so I can eat it up, but at the same time, it's the breath work, right? It's the being present. It's all the other things that we know yoga to be. And so, I fell in love with yin yoga.
Oh, I'm going to have to try that. I've been doing the flow. I go slow flow is my jam, and vinyasa flows. So I'm going to try that one. I'm going to find a class for that one.
Yes. So have you done hot yoga yet?
Absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I'm at the age where I cannot be hot like that.
I know, right?
Yeah, they have a stretch class where I was said, is this going to be hot in here? And she said, we can turn the heat off for you. I was like, I don't trust y'all. I'll come back when y'all take the heat off of there.
Yeah, it's intense. It's intense. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, it's intense.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you if they want more information? They want to download that self-care package that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So my website is oriara.com, oriara.com. There you can find the Body Ministry blog. I actually have my book, The Body Ministry. It's a playbook for your health and fitness journey coming out on February 22nd. You can find that there. The digital download kits that I mentioned, all sorts of fun stuff. So go check it out.
Yeah. And I see Tea Time Beauty in the chat says, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom tonight. And she enjoys restorative yoga. That's my jam too.
Yes.
Yin yoga. Yes. All of that you're mentioning in the chat. I love all of that. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're going to have to come back.
I would love to.
Now I want to know more about the bodybuilding too.
Yes, we could talk that all day. Absolutely.
Yeah. So everyone, for more information about self-care, self-love, protecting your peace, all those things, head over to blackdoctor.org. There's articles and resources over there. Now, next week with Valentine's Day coming up, some of us are we did put love on our vision boards. Don't act like I'm the only one that did that, y'all. We talked about this at the beginning of the year with our vision boards. And if you don't remember that episode, go check it out. It's with Coach Erica Shorty. But we're going to be talking about next week. We're talking about dating with intention, because that's a thing I think that gets missed. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm excited about next week's guest as well. So have a soul-filled rest of the week, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a good night.